Well, hi there, Randy Cross here, and this is the Randy Cross Podcast. Really appreciate you joining us. If you watch this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and like us. We appreciate that kind of input. We appreciate that on all the social media platforms, to be perfectly honest. Today, our guest is a little bit different, as most of our guests are. He is Jason Bailey. Jason Bailey is a radio host, a podcast host. I worked with him on a sports radio station for a better part of a year here in Atlanta. And he was with Rock 105 for about 7 years after that. And he's currently doing his own podcast, and we'll talk a lot about that in this interview. Let's check him out. All right, now, interview. As promised, Jason Bailey. I told you about him. He's got the Jason Bailey podcast. He's got the Dark Cloud podcast. He's got a lot of stuff on his platform going on. He, until recently, was a radio show host, most recently at 100.5 in Atlanta. Started his career down in Orlando, briefly with me, by the way. Did a little sports radio. But now is on in the big world of podcast and heating up and doing a great job. Jason, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. You know, this is the first time in almost 30 years of being in this business that I've been interviewed by a big deal. You know, and not to take anything away from those that have interviewed me, but, you know, it's like the high school kid. You're the college kid, the kid that wants to be in radio. And I always tell them, you know, don't do it. It's the worst career move you could ever possibly make. But to be interviewed by or have a conversation, as you know, I like to say, a three-time Super Bowl champion. I mean, yeah. This is the pinnacle of my career right here. Cool.
Well, good. Well, just when you leave, know that it's nowhere but downhill from here. Hey, how are things going with your new venture, your podcast? I mean, just to call it a podcast seems a little bit almost strange because you got quite a few separate little entities going on at the same time.
Yeah. So the idea behind, well, I guess let me go from the beginning is, you know, when I got fired back in August, I came home and the first thing I did was I wrote a 12-month.
Hold on.
Yep.
Thank you, Andy. He couldn't have done it without you, Andy. Okay, go ahead.
So when I got fired in October, the first thing I did was I came home and I wrote out a 12-month plan, and we've knocked the first 3 months out of the park. The 4, 5, and 6, I think, which we're in now, are going to be a bit of a challenge because now we have to grow outside of our our fan base. When you get fired, people are upset and they're going to do anything to follow you, and so we've got those people with us, and now we have to grow it. Part of the strategy with that is, and I've always wanted to do this, even when I was working in terrestrial radio, is create a network. And that's what we're doing with the BS, using my old moniker from Florida, the Bailey Show now, then it was Buckethead, but thank God they both start with B. And then creating new content every day of the week, and then adding onto that by bringing in other podcasts, in which we've done. So we've got something different every day of the week. And I was explaining to a potential, most likely new sponsor the other day, is, you know, I said, what do you listen to? Because he was not familiar with podcasting, has no clue, blah, blah, blah. But one of his employees was a big fan. And I said, what do you listen to? And he says, well, I usually listen to Sirius XM and the Kenny Chesney channel or the Jam Band channel. So that was his cup of tea. I said, okay, you're in the car for an hour. You're listening to the Kenny Chesney channel. I'm assuming he's going to have Luke Bryan and Garth Brooks and Dirk Bentley and all that. You're not changing it. That's what I want to provide for the podcast world. A push, you know, the BS, PodcastTheBS, the BS on Spotify or wherever you listen to it, and you never have to change it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Is that anything like what Rogan has grown to?
God, we could only hope to be that big. This controversy for Rogan, I don't think he knows how to handle it properly. But Jesus, man, what a great.
Who knows how to handle that?
I know, but years ago you'd embrace it, right? And the
Yeah.
haters, you would say, it's the old Howard Stern theory is, X amount of people are listening for X amount of time because they like them. X amount of people are listening even longer because they hate them. Times have changed. Times are a little bit different because of this crazy cancel culture that we live in. I just don't think Joe wants the headache. He just wants to have some fun and talk to interesting people. He doesn't want to get wrapped up. But you know how we do it in this great country of ours. We like to tear down the successful and find all the dirt we can on the background. But Joe, Joe just does his show. Like, I don't even know what his schedule is. But he doesn't do anything. I mean, we were talking about a different level with him, with a lot of money behind it, and producers that are setting everything up. He walks in and I'm sure he's got say in the planning, but it's all strategy from people that know what they're doing, and they're great at doing it, by the way. So Joe is just hit his stride. It's not like an overnight success. Rogan, if you watch the Comedy Store special, I think it's on Showtime. It was like a 5-part docuseries. One of the episodes is about Joe, and it really starts out of how he got banned. Mitzi Shore, Pauly Shore's mother, banned him because at the time Carlos Mencia was a big deal, and he went up and trashed Carlos Mencia in the middle of his set because Carlos Mencia has been known to steal jokes from comics. He just called him out. Yeah. Rogan was low man on the totem pole, so they kick him out. He had like an apartment above the Comedy Store or something. He's been doing a podcast for years. And he would just have his comedy buddies up there, and he didn't know what the hell he was doing. He's on some computer. And they talked to some of his fellow comedians. They're like, I had no idea what I was doing. I was going up there and talking on some internet radio show. I don't know. Joe asked me to do it, but now you look at him, he's a $200 million man, right?
When I first saw him or one of his podcasts, he was smoking a joint, talking about aliens. And I was just sitting there, and I watched like an hour trying to figure out, now this guy's making money doing this. there's got to be something to this.
Well, just like you, I mean, you and I worked together at the sports station, and unfortunately you got stuck with a quote unquote hot talk show host that was horrible at hosting a sports show, but the information didn't get from New York to Atlanta. By the way, the guy in question called me out of the blue the other day, just random. Your audience has no idea what I'm talking about, but I'll throw that out to you. So, in this podcast world, we're our own boss, and terrestrial radio has missed the boat. They already lost the music war. I mean, that's done. They're never getting that back. And so they had a window of winning the long form war because radio still has personalities. They're just not utilizing them properly because there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and a lot of those cooks don't know how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. And so you have these guys that just need jobs, and a lot of them don't want to put the work in that I'm putting in, that you're putting in, your producer's putting in, my producers are putting in. They just want to go in and talk on a microphone, and they think magic is going to happen. They don't understand that hard work goes into it. I'm reinventing myself, just as you've reinvented yourself, so to speak. I mean, I know you're still Randy Cross, and you're still going to go and you're going to do the signings, and you're still going to do the television. But your podcast is remarkable. The production with your podcast, it's another element to who you are and what you've become. And it's such a liberating feeling, isn't it? To know that we're our own boss. We control 100%. We can treat sponsors the way we feel like we need to treat sponsors. We can produce the content that we want to produce, and we keep, I mean, not to sound like a greedy pig, but 100% of the proceeds. What I mean? So it's a win-win if you can get an audience. You just have to get an audience. That's all you got to do. That's the tough part.
In your new your new venue, do you have like a third rail? Is there anything that you consciously say, I ain't going there?
It's funny. I was asked that today by someone. They said something very similar. They said, well, at least you don't have to worry about the FCC. I never worried about the FCC. That was never my shtick. I will, maybe younger in my career doing rock radio, the 18 to 34 male demo, and I was trying to figure things out and competition and stress and all that. But as I got older and especially got into talk radio, you kind of find your own voice, your own journey, your own path, your own venture, your own universe. And I don't go to the race stuff. It's just, if it's not entertaining, then I'm not interested. If I can't make jokes or I can't evoke emotion, as I always like to preach, I can't make someone laugh, I can't educate someone or be educated, then I really have no interest in talking about it. There are certain things that I put under the category of a Facebook argument, and no one wins a Facebook argument. So, like these political podcasts, I don't care who you vote for, but it's a no-win argument. And people are so naive not to see that all politics is shock jock radio. It's evoking an emotion. Half those people don't believe the stuff they're telling you. I promise you. I know this for a fact, but they know that it pisses you off. And if that pisses you off, then you're gonna comment, you're gonna support, you're gonna share, you're gonna like, you're gonna protest, you're gonna do something. And that's the key to our business, is evoking emotion, passion, evoking the emotion. You do that to a listener, you'll never lose them, ever.
Hi. Do you talk much in your podcast over the brief period since you've been gone out of radio about how that all ended, or have you sort of avoided that?
Oh no. Well, at the beginning I did, like day one I did, because and I'll tell you why. I didn't do it for cried over spilled milk, or I was bitter or jealous or any of those things. This is a time for radio personalities to stand up for themselves. This is the first time I know in my career that I've been, as we call it, on the beach out of work, that I have an opportunity to continue to do what I love. And that's talk on a microphone and entertain an audience. Years ago, when you would be on the beach or out of work, you'd be sitting around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for somebody to call, the phone to ring. And then you start getting desperate, and companies would know that, and they'd be able to save some money. It was like, now we don't have to do those things. So to your point, to your question, is I wanted to make sure people knew the truth. And I know the truth has three sides: my side, your side, and then in the middle. But I at least had to get my side out, because I think the radio forgets that the audience is numero uno. They're the stars. And they treat them like they're stupid. Real radio stations, pun intended, one of my former stations, they allow the audience to be a part of the drama, the show, the reality show, whatever it is. They broke the fourth wall. We were doing that back in the 90s, or they were doing it back in the 90s. So I subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to breaking the fourth wall and treating the audience member like they're a part of your show. If they're going to give up time listening to you, then they should know everything. So yeah, I did. And then I kind of let it go because it was over and I moved on. But then some months later, fairly recently to this conversation, something was said on the airwaves that was a lie. It was defamation of my character. And it irritated me. So I addressed it. And, local newspaper got a hold of it, and it turned out to be a thing. But I didn't say anything that I didn't mean. I didn't say anything I wouldn't say to anybody's face. I never do. And, it's funny because when that article came out, I haven't even talked about this on my podcast because I'm just trying to let it go. But you asked me the question. So when that article came out, within minutes, I had a good amount, let's just say, of radio personalities, former and present, here and there, reach out to me and say, good for you, because I'm sticking up for myself. Now, the people in the business, the higher ups that make whatever, they look at it as me being difficult. You're difficult to work with. No one wants to hire somebody that if you get fired, you know what? I'm over it. I'm done with it. So be it. If that's the case, you don't want a real talker, I'm not interested. That's fine.
Yeah. That's great. And a good example of sort of the variety of things that you do now was I was looking through your stuff today, and I come across a post you make, and it looks like you're getting your foot injected. There's a syringe, there's a needle, and there's the bottom of a foot.
Mm-hmm.
Would
Yeah.
that's your plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, you want to know something that's really funny. Your audience will like this. So Randy and I have been friends ever since we worked together, and that's been about 7 years. I have the utmost respect for Randy. I love him. I love his family, and we hang out outside, right? So I think of you often when certain things come up. And every time that I'm injured, I always say, I go, suck it up, Bailey. Randy Cross played in the NFL in the 80s for almost 2 decades, and he like never missed a game. So suck it up, Bailey. That's what I say to myself.
I'm gonna get you one of these rubber bracelets that says WWRD.
What would Randy do? But yeah, so I've had plantar fasciitis. I've had it before, but nothing like this for like 4 months. It's the strangest.
That shit looked like it hurt.
Oh my! It is the strangest plantar fasciitis. It started on my right foot, moved so I work out. I'm not like overly athletic or active. I'm 46 years old. I was when I was young.
Yeah.
But I play a lot of tennis and I go to the gym and I'm doing something every day. And so tennis is actually, say what you want about the sport. It's a very violent sport on your legs, on your feet. And so I think between obviously the movement, I think my sneakers were too small and whatever. So it would bounce right to left, right to left, right to left. And before I usually take a break in the fall. But last summer I stopped a little early because I couldn't even walk. And I went out there the last day I played, and it was my right foot that was in pain. My left foot was fine. And I go and I play this match against this guy that I never can beat. And when I'm done, my right foot's healed, like perfectly fine. And my left foot is killing me. And so fast forward 4 months later, it's still my left foot. I've done everything. And everybody's got like this home remedy. Everybody wants to help, which is very nice. But, it's stretch, water bottle, tennis ball, massage, dry needle, acupuncture.
Frozen water bottle. Yeah.
I've tried it all. And so I'm getting desperate, or I got desperate. And I've been dealing with some pretty well-respected doctors in the matter. And one of them, Dr. Chow, who's here in Atlanta, I texted him the other night and I said, Doc, I need the needle. This is my last resort. And he says, I'll call you in the morning. I'll tell you if I can get you in. I said, okay, thank you, sir. And he reaches out and he says, how about, what time? I said, fine, I'm there. And I'm there and I'm watching YouTube videos because everybody's told me how painful this is. Now, I don't mind pain. I have a pretty good threshold of pain, and I don't mind needles. I do testosterone maintenance every week. I don't mind needles. But going into your foot is the worst place to put a needle. And I'm watching these YouTube videos, and I'm seeing
not much meat down there.
No, not at all. And the YouTube videos, they're spraying like this frozen stuff on the feet so it numbs it up. I'm like, Dr. Chow, I need the frozen juice, whatever it is. He's like, yeah, we got something to numb it. I'm like, oh, great. This is perfect. So I go in there, I bring my wife, Rachel, and she's with me. And I was like, this should not be a big deal because he's freezing it. Oh my God. The initial needle in the side of the foot is one thing. But when he pushes it, and if anybody wants to see the video for whatever reason, you can go to my social media at Mr. Jason Bailey on Instagram and find it. But he pushes the needle in like he's impaling my foot. And that's what hurts. And when he was done, I felt like I just did one of those Tough Mudders, or went 12 rounds with Tyson. I was like, I can do anything.
And by the way, I will note that Jason's beautiful wife Rachel has had 2 kids, so I'm sure at some point she referenced that.
At some point in the beginning, at some point in the middle, and at some point at the end. Yes, she did. She wanted to make sure I knew that there's nothing more painful on this earth than giving birth. And I don't disagree with her, but It's just the way God made us. I'm never going to have to experience that. So I'm going to have to go with the impaling of my foot. That will be my, equate it to your birth giving there.
Ooh. So hopefully the cortisone in that quiets it down.
Yeah, it's supposed to. Like 2 days, he said, you give it 2 days and it's going to be fine. The first day, it felt like it was numb, like it was asleep. And you could feel the cortisone moving in your body. Now, I'd also been doing structural therapy, laser / electronic, whatever. Right. And this doctor was phenomenal. He's actually up by you, and I'd never done it before. And I got sucked in by an Instagram ad because I was desperate, right? And I go to him, and he's a great guy. And I go in there, and I was on my third treatment. I was getting ready to do my fourth, but he said, since I got the cortisone shot, that I can't do it for 4 weeks. So he takes, it's like being tased by a bad cop and being a cow that's being prodded. It's not, he's got this massage doctor's chair that's got handlebars on it. So it's almost like you're Tom Cruise and Top Gun riding a Kawasaki Ninja, but it's a massage. I'm like, why does he have handlebars like here? And I'm face down. Is this a doctor's office or some weird kinky sex room? This is odd. And he goes, you want to hang on to those? I go, why? He goes, this gets really painful. I go, now you tell me. I wasn't in your Instagram ad. And it hurt. I'm sitting there holding these things, almost ripping them off, screaming at the top of my lungs because it was so painful.
Damn. Sounds like he treated you like a Canadian trucker.
If I was in the lobby, I'd be like, are we sure this is a doc? What's going on in there? This is weird.
It wasn't crowded when you got out.
It was open.
Oh, that's fantastic. So what's next for you? What's your next who's your next guest, and what's your next podcast?
Well, depending on when this airs, so we have this week we had it's hard. That's another thing with this podcasting that's very confusing, is remembering the days and when you record. What somebody today was talking to me about one of the episodes, and they just listened to it, so it was fresh in their memory. I think I recorded it like a week ago, and because some of these I can record a couple weeks out that are not time space. And then there are some like the Monday and Friday, which are more like radio shows. Thursday's like a newsy type of show. They've got to be as close to the date as possible, or it's, you have to go in and edit it. Like we have to go in a couple times to the Bob Saget stuff and add in because the information was coming out so fast. That's the only downside to podcasting versus radio, is that real time. I've been on the air when stuff has happened. I've been on the air when we first went into Iraq and broke into the song to tell people, shock and awe. I was on the air during the Casey Anthony trial and was playing the trial during my show, because it was right in our own backyard in Orlando. And then Peanut Gallery, bringing it up and down and talking during it. The Trayvon Martin stuff, I was right in the middle. The mayor of Sanford was a very good friend of mine, Jeff Triplett. So I was right, the breaking news, you're right then and there.
Yeah.
Podcast, that's the one thing I miss about it. You can't do on podcasting unless you do live shows. And that's just, it's very, very difficult. And I don't think anybody's figured out the live shows. But we have, the thing with the podcast is I wanted to do, and I am doing, something that radio is missing. And that is the time to talk to a guest and make it interesting. Of course, Howard is the king, of doing that, having guests on for a long time and making it interesting. You got to know when to shut up and you got to know when to, to go. But, the best talkers are better listeners. And so we're talking to interesting people. I had a professional voiceover guy, because I'm such a fan of the business, on Jeff Reckner. And he does like the voice for the GMC commercials and the Taco Bell, the Taco Bell nacho, that kind of stuff. His voice. Like, we talked to him for an hour. It was extremely interesting. We had my mentor on. My audience loves that stuff. We have attorneys on. We have some celebrities on. I'm not a big celebrity interview guy. It's just because they're not going to tell you anything that they're not going to get paid for.
People are a lot more interesting.
They're a lot more interesting, especially when you're able to get people in viral stories. My producers did a really good job with, I don't know if you remember a little while back, the viral story of that crazy lady on the flight, and she starts yelling at the older guys, just trying to eat his peanuts, and slaps him in the face and spits on him and stuff like that. So we had the guy that filmed him, and that dude was a character, young guy, all tatted up, Whiskey Rose, and that's his name. I think it was his name. Huh. And then we had the older gentleman on, who was just the nicest guy in the world. But I got to ask him things that the news doesn't ask him. And a lot of radio people don't ask him because they don't have time to get there. An important question, because in that video, you see his wife grab his face. You see that and you want to know, dude, was your wife pissed off at you? And if she was, did she not talk to you for a couple of days? Or she withheld?
Did she hit you too?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the fun stuff you talk about. And the news never gets it. Radio doesn't have time for it, unfortunately, because they're up against a break or their boss is telling them that the audience doesn't care, that kind of stuff. So, but that's the kind of guests we have. We have interesting guests, like you. You have interesting guests. You have interesting. Yeah. You're buddies with all these people, though. You can call up Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and tell them to fly in. They come in.
Yeah, right. All right. Hey, Jace, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm going to come over and get that jacket, and we'll do another episode of your podcast.
Yeah, please.
And we'll be dropping this thing in probably sometime tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
See you, buddy.
All right. Thanks to Jason. Hope you really enjoyed it. He's a different dude, isn't he? He's a good man. He's a good man. And that podcast and everything about it has got all the signs that it is going to blow up. He's a very, very talented individual. This is the good news. This is the good news. Hey, I want you to check out this feel-good story. We haven't done this in a little while, but this is a feel-good story about a family of owl chicks. Yeah, owl, like birds, like whoo, and all that. Owl chicks. And only the dodo could do this story the way they did. Let's see it.
Tree cutters cut down the tree, and there were baby barred owls in it. When we get out there, the little babies were on a piece of wood underneath a tree. We had to put the babies back with mom. She was actually up in the tree above them, watching over them. The mom could not get in, so we decided to make a little nest and find a good spot where mom was. The mom was still in. I climbed up the tree, and then my wife tied off the nest, and so I pulled it up with my rope. I got it all in place, and then she tied the babies in our little carrier, and I pulled the babies up and put them up in the nest. By the time I got down, that mom and dad had both been seen flying into the nest. We got a call from the homeowner, and he said that he's only seen 2 up in the nest. We were worried that maybe something had happened. So I ended up going back out there and climbing the tree. And all 3 were still in there. And they had grown tremendously. It's perfect. This is exactly what he's supposed to be doing. It's really cool to see that they grew up.
Yeah, go figure. You rescue baby owls, they grow. They get a lot bigger. In fact, they get big enough that you don't want to mess with them anymore. That was fun. And the people at the dodo do just amazing work. They're really fun to keep track of. Hey, want to remind you, social media wise, where you're going to find this podcast. You know, you can get it on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, and coming up it'll be on Truth Social, which is going to be activated here pretty quick. So it'll be on all the platforms you can get. If you get a chance, go to randycross.com though, because that's the place where it's the easiest. You don't have to hunt around to get it. randycross.com is the place to go. All right, let's end this thing the way we end them all, with a little happy trails.